to stay.
Hello and welcome back to Beyond Boards, a podcast dedicated to the actions and interests of skaters beyond skateboarding. My guest today, Gordon Eckler, grew up between the island of Guam and Maryland before settling down as a young adult in California to pursue his dream of becoming a pro skater. After a few years of sponsorship, he transitioned into graphic design and marketing and eventually started his own business, Plaid again, in July 2020. Along with his good friend and business partner Jack Spanbauer, he created a card game called Skate Trivia, born out of a game played between skaters during road trips while driving to skate spots. They are about to release two browser-based games, Skate Trivia and Skate Spot Trivia, both of which will be hosted on skatetrivia.com. So here's my conversation with Gordon. I hope you'll enjoy it. So I don't know if you've listened to some of my interviews, but I usually just talk with the guests about, their life story and how they got into skating and what they're up to in the skateboarding world or around it. And I usually end the interviews by some friends' questions. So I have a few for you that I'll surprise you at the end.
Wow.
Yeah, just a
really
few. I don't have plenty, but yeah.
Okay, cool. Interesting. Okay. Well, I definitely won't go in depth here because I started skating in 1988. My dad used to fix things for the military. So at the time in 1988, we lived in Guam, which is in the middle. Well, actually, it's on the far end of the Pacific. One side of the island is the Pacific Ocean and the other side is the Philippine Sea. So it's like all the way out there.
Okay.
And the other kids on the island, most of them were from California. Mm-hmm. So I was in third grade. Yeah, I was in third grade and I met all these other kids and they were all into skateboarding. So that's actually, it was a combination of I owned a skateboard because I saw Back to the Future. And I asked my family and I was like, dear God, anybody buy me a skateboard. I want to be Michael J. Fox so bad. Mm-hmm. So I owned a skateboard because of Back to the Future, but I never used it. So then in Guam, that's how I really got into skating. And then in 91, we moved back to the East Coast. Then we moved to Maryland. And then it was crazy because pre-internet, Guam was just 10 years behind everybody else, basically. Mm-hmm. So in 91, skateboarding had rapidly changed, but I moved back and I had this shaped board from the 80s with rails on it and a tail guard and full. And I met these other kids, I immediately met other skateboarders and they were like, dude, what decade are you in? Yeah. So immediately they were like, we all ride world boards and whatever. So it really ramped me up. So then I lived in Southern Maryland until 97 when I finished high school.
Okay.
And I had a really, really close-knit group of skateboarders. I won't go super in depth, but my parents just were so supportive of skateboarding and they loved skateboarding so much that they basically let me turn my backyard into a skate park. So we had a mini ramp, we had a vert ramp, and then we connected the mini ramp and the vert ramp. We connected the flat bottoms and turned it into a street course.
Wow.
So, yeah, our backyard was crazy. And a lot of it was just donations. There was no skate park, so, all my friends were here's $100. Here's because a lot of my friends were older.
Right.
And, they had working jobs. So people would kick in for, sheet metal or wood or whatever. Mm-hmm. And they were just amazed that my parents let me build all this stuff. So I can show you a photo. Our backyard, my backyard growing up was insane. Or very unlike your typical suburban life, but we were at the edge of suburbia, so there was no houses behind us. So we were I was lucky there. So then in 1997, I moved to Baltimore to go to college, and then I met all these Baltimore skateboarders. So to backtrack a little bit, in 1995, I got my first sponsor, and I started riding for a local brand called Coffee. Okay. And then after Coffee, I actually ended up on Creature Flow, but this is the first time Creature was around.
Right. I saw some footage of you skating with some Creature, either caps or a hoodie or something. I was wondering if you got sponsored by them at some point, but yeah, you just answered that.
Yeah. So then years later, after I moved to California, I ended up riding for Creature for 4 years or something.
Okay.
And then I lived in Baltimore for about 8 years. So I finished college. And then right when I finished college, my last semester of college started with September 11th, 2001. So trade towers fell, plane went into the Capitol. So or sorry, the Pentagon.
Right.
So finding a job right out of college was really, really hard. So I just packed up my pickup truck and drove across country, and I did that twice.
Okay.
And I was living off of a gas card. So I would eat at gas stations, and I was just putting everything on this gas card.
Okay.
So I did that for like 4 months. And every time I drove out, I'd end up in Santa Cruz because I was skating for Consolidated at the time.
Oh, okay. Nice.
And Consolidated would let me live in the warehouse, and they had a shower but no hot water. So you could take this freezing cold showers, and they had bunk beds in the warehouse. So you could just you had a place to sleep, which in thinking about it now, I can't believe I ever slept there or lived there. But I don't know, it was awesome at the time. So that was like 2001. And then I would end up in California until I ran out of money. And then I would go all the way back to Maryland, again, just using this gas card. Mm-hmm. So then my last trip out in 2003, I was like, I'm done. Like, I just want to live in the San Francisco Bay Area. Like, I end up there. Basically, on these trips cross country, I keep ending up there.
Yeah.
My best friend moved to Colorado, but I wanted to live in California, so it was a little bit of a toss-up, like where to go. But I was like, I'm going to SF. That's where I want to live. Mm-hmm. So in 2004, at this point, I quit writing for Consolidated, and I was sponsorless. But then, as I was driving to California in 2004, my really good friend Richard, who owned a skate shop in Maryland, had mailed a VHS tape of me to these guys that were running The Unbelievers, which was Scott Bourne and Jeremy Fish.
I was going to ask you, actually, because I interviewed Scott Bourne about a year ago, and was he also your teammate on Consolidated, or was he gone from there at that point?
He was gone, yeah. So Scott had left just a few months before I showed up.
Okay.
And it was weird, I was talking to the team manager at the time, and he was like, yeah, everything's good, you should come out. But then him and Scott left, and then I showed up, and they were like, who are you? Mm-hmm. And I was like, well, I got invited. And they were like, by who? So literally I showed up, and they were like, we have no idea who you are. So then I just gave them footage, and they were like, oh yeah, but the beds are over there, you can stay. And then I ended up writing for them for 4 years. I went on two different trips with them. It was fun, but I left Consolidated, and so then as I'm moving to California, Richard had mailed this tape to The Unbelievers. So basically, when I got to San Francisco, they were like, yeah, we really want to meet this dude, but I didn't know what was going on yet. And then Richard was like, hey, you should go meet these dudes. So then I go and I meet Scott. Already lived in Paris. Okay. And so I just met Jeremy, and I had no idea who he was. And he was like, yeah, you're on the team. And I was like, oh, sick. It was really rad because I didn't know really fully what was going on. Mm-hmm. So then I rode for The Unbelievers for a short period of time. And it was short because, so I was living in San Francisco and I was skating every single day. This is 2004. And then it turns out, I found out I was the only person skating on The Unbelievers, at all. Scott, well, I can't say Scott wasn't skating, but he was in Paris.
Yeah, he was away and probably not filming much, and yeah.
Well, he may have been, but he's filming in Europe, and at the time, Europe skating and U.S. skating was just there was a big separation,
for sure.
big separation, right? Yeah. And I was like, well, Scott's in Paris, and then the other people on the team were Judd Hertzler, who is a friend of mine, and he's super rad, but he had blown out his knee, so he's like, I'm on the team, but I can't skate.
Okay.
Pontus Alv, who was also in Europe. But I want to say he may have been injured at the time. But again, I was like, Pontus is so sick. I've never met him in person, but he lives in Europe.
That was before he started Polar then, yeah. Yeah, because Polar was in 2010, 2011 maybe, yeah.
Yeah. So, the team was it was pros, it was Scott, Pontus. It was actually J.R. Neves for a short period of time, and then he left the team and then eventually passed away. And then there was, and then Judd Hertzler. And then it was just me. I think I was the only AM.
Okay.
And I was like, dude, I'm the only one skating. Because I was like, we should do ads. We should make a video. I was so hyped.
Right.
And they were like, great, but it's just you. So good luck. And I was like, fuck, I can't. We need, it can't be just me.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, so then I was just skating around. And then I met up with Trevor and all those dudes that were making the Seasons videos.
Okay.
And I would go skating with them all the time. And I wasn't invited to the party. I just always showed up. So then when it came time for the Seasons video to come out, Trevor was like, the video's way too long. I can't put you in it. He's like, but you have a full part. I was like, so then I met up with, so Trevor was like, come over and I'll give you all your footage. And that's actually the last time I ever saw Trevor alive. He passed away like 2 weeks later or something like that, or like relatively soon after that.
Okay.
So I saw Trevor, he gave me all my footage. So then I had this part and I didn't know what to do with it. And then I bumped into these dudes at a video premiere. It was Alex Turan and this guy, Jim. Jim was a filmmaker, and he was like, we're making this video for 510 Skate Shop. And I was like, great, I have a part and I have nowhere to put it. I don't know what to do with it. He was like, we'll take it. So I gave them all my footage, and then he's like, you should come over and meet everybody. And that's how I met Walker, because Walker skated for them.
Right.
Yeah, and then Walker is how I was introduced to you. Yeah, so I met Walker because they were making this video, and then I started meeting, I met all these dudes. Living in the Bay Area, you meet like 10 new skateboarders every day. It's like, definitely at that time, it was crazy. So then I was living in San Francisco, and the Unbelievers was super sick, but it was just like, we're not doing anything. And then Creatures started back up, and I didn't know any of them. And randomly, I don't know if you know Doug Shoemaker, but Shoemaker came over my house, which is rare. And he was like, dude, I was talking to these dudes at NHS and your name came up. And I was like, sick, what's that mean? He's like, I don't know, dude, you should hit them up. So then I just started reaching out to them. I actually don't remember how I got in touch with them. And then I met Lee Sharon, was known, everyone knows him as Creature Lee. And then I got on Creature, and I skated for Creature basically for the next like 5 years.
Okay.
And until I was 30. And after I was 30 years old, I was like, I got to figure out like how to make money. Like, I'm broke. I can't like live in the Mission, like eating a burrito every other day. Like, I can't do this anymore. So, but it was a wild ride. It was super fun. Super, super fun. So I kind of bounced around. I never really had like a solid sponsor. But toward the end, I will say, Creature or Lee told me, he was like, I can't pay you, but I can reimburse you for travel. So have at it. So I was like, great. So I just started going everywhere. Like, and the last big trip I remember going on, again, is a party I wasn't invited to, was I found out that Thrasher was doing a skate rock tour.
Okay.
And I was like, sick. So I just followed them in my pickup truck. And Lee was like, I'll reimburse you for gas. So I ended up in this like caravan of like vans, and then like me in a pickup truck. Mm-hmm. And then they were like, people in the vans were like, can I ride with you? Like, it stinks in that van. I was like, yeah, whatever. So then dudes started like riding with me, and I just ended up on this tour. That's the last tour, I think. That was in 2010-ish.
Okay.
And it was super interesting. Like, still meeting dudes. I moved to Oakland, and I lived in Oakland for 10 years. And then I started working as a designer, which is what I went to school for back in the late 90s. So when I turned 30, I was like, shit, I really got to figure something out. Mm-hmm. So then I started applying for design jobs and this is actually a funny story. So I applied for a job at EA, which is it's like a video game company, Electronic Arts. They make like Madden football and all this shit. It's a big video game company here just in South Bay. Mm-hmm. And they needed a brand designer. So I just was like, fuck it, whatever. So I sent them my portfolio, my resume, and it was like really, this is really early on. I really didn't have that much experience. And I got a call back, and they're like, yeah, we definitely want you to come in and interview for sure. And I was like, okay. So then I came in, and in the interview, like I was like, I brought like a physical portfolio. Which I was like, here's my book,
Yeah.
And I showed them my stuff. And they're like, yeah. And then really they only wanted to talk about like the stuff in my portfolio that like had anything to do with skateboarding. And then all of a sudden we're in this meeting and talking about skateboarding. Like, oh, like, do you remember that spot? I was like, yeah, I remember that spot. Like, I was totally like, I'm at this like in this corporate office, and I'm like, why the hell are we talking about skateboarding?
Yeah.
And then about halfway through the interview, I realized the two people I'm interviewing with 100% grew up skateboarding.
Oh, okay.
And
nice.
they really called me in just because they could tell from my portfolio that I skated. And then on my way home, they called the recruiter and they were like, we want to make him an offer. So I ended up working at EA on a 6-month contract. And then later after I got hired, I asked them, I was like, why did you hire me? Like, for sure there were people with better portfolios. Yeah. And they were like, we just wanted to work with somebody that we could like hang out with and like could stand being around, and we could tell we could get along with you. So, I mean, literally skateboarding got me that job.
Yeah. That's awesome.
And that was my first design job in California, was working there for 6 months. So, so it was really interesting. It was just like, it's been a bizarre ride.
And so you told me about the different sponsors you had, but did you ever turn pro or did it never happen?
No, I never received a paycheck or got paid. Like, honestly, I think it's because I was started too late. Like, I went to college for 4 years, and I was 25 when I moved to California, and a lot of brands were just like, I mean, they thought, like, I had skills to skate, but a lot of people, I think they were just like, yeah, you're just too old.
Oh, yeah. At that time, 25 was quite old, so to speak, in skate years.
Yeah. I mean, and I'm still friends with a lot of people who worked at Deluxe and NHS, and a lot of the people who were TMs. And they would be honest with me. Like, Darren Howard was the TM at Deluxe, and same with Johnny Utah, or his real name is John Alden. Mm-hmm. So, like, those dudes were TMs, and they were just honest with me. They were like, dude, you're too old, but I can give you product. And I was like, nah, whatever. So I got a job bartending, and I bartended at night and skated during the day. And I just did that for like 6 or 7 years until I was like too old to be doing this shit. You know, I was like, man, I can't. Yeah, but yeah, no, I never received a paycheck. But I rode for some really fun companies that were just really supportive. My favorite was Freedom. It was Dandra Hobel's clothing company.
Oh, I don't remember that one. Okay.
Yeah, he had a clothing company that was out of Think. This is like back when he rode for Think. Like, this is like pre-Crooked. Right. And I just mailed him a VHS tape and was like, I like what you're doing. And then like 5 months later, I got an email that was like, hey, you're on the team. What do you want? And that was it. Like it was like one sentence.
Wow.
And I was like, hey, like, what's up? And he was like, I just need to know your shirt size. And that was it. Like, Dan was always like really, really short. And then when I moved to San Francisco, I got to know Dan a lot better. And it's funny, like, I think when I met him when I moved out here, he was like, sorry, those clothes always sucked, or something like that. Like, it was like total Dan. But that was probably my favorite. It was one of my favorite sponsors for sure. But I mean, all of them helped me out.
Yeah.
And then another one was Ace Trucks, because when Joey and Shrugi started it, they lived 1 block from me in the Mission.
Okay.
And I entered the skate contest at, I don't know, it was some local contest, and I think it was at Crocker. Mm-hmm. And then Joey just bumped into me in the street. Like, I was just on 24th Street, and Joey was like, yeah, you should come over to our house and hang out. And I was like, sure. Like, I'm not doing anything today. I don't have to work till tonight. Mm-hmm. And then I go over, and he's like, we want you to ride for Ace. And I was like, oh, sick. You know, like, it was like that casual.
Yeah.
And Joey and Shrugi, like, and I keep in touch with them still. They're like super rad. And they had just started the company, so everything was like, it was really exciting. So that was super fun. Mm-hmm. But yeah, but anybody who ever gave me product, whether it was wheels, boards, trucks, or shoes, it was
always appreciated. Yeah.
Dude, like, those dudes kept me alive for 10 years for sure. Justin Regan, he's another one. I've never met him in person, but that dude fed me for years on shoes. Mm-hmm. I mean, like, and he didn't have to, you know?
Yeah.
He was just like, here's another pair, dude. I was like, or actually, like, at the time he worked at Soul Tag, and these America boxes were like insane. Like, I was like, who the hell needs 12 pairs of shoes? But thanks. Like, I get to eat this week, so I was fucking hyped.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had some really, really fun ones, man. But and honestly, like, everybody I kept in touch with, and you know, we wrapped in 2020. I started my own design studio called Plaid again, which I'm sitting in the Plaid again office right now. And then in 2021, I pitched the idea of a skate trivia game to Ginkgo Press. I sent them a pitch packet, and they called me in 4 days, and they were like, "Yeah, let's go! Like, we want to do this." Wow. And then since then, I've really ramped up and started working on skate trivia again, because I worked on it for a long time. So since, with the skate trivia game coming out, the printed one, since that came out, I've been able to like reconnect with a lot of people that, like, I mean, it's not that I didn't have anything to talk about, but you know, a lot of my friends, like, it was like, hey, skate Thursday, you down? You know. But then now that I'm like in my 40s with a kid, I'm like, I mean, I could hit you up, but like, what do you want to talk about? You know?
Yeah.
So with the skate trivia game, it's like, hey, like, let's talk. Like, we have some shit to talk about, and I've really had just this opportunity to reconnect with like friends of mine. You know, so it's been just really exciting. It's been again, the last 2 years have been a super wild ride.
Yeah, that's rad. So you covered pretty much your like work experience until you started your own studio. And so tell me about like coming up with the idea for skate trivia. You're about to launch the online version of it, but it's first and foremost a card game.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, tell me first about the physical game and how you came up with the concept and everything.
Sure. So in 1995, I was still in high school. And back then, skate parks existed, but they were really far away. Mm-hmm. And on the East Coast, there was 2 really, really good indoor parks. But they were in Pennsylvania. So it was 2 hours there, 2 hours back.
Okay.
So me and my really, really good friend, Brian Ball, I don't know whose idea it was, really. Like, I'll credit Brian. So Brian was like, you know what? Like, I'm going to write some skateboard trivia questions. And it was just to kill time in the car.
Right.
Because it's like, dude, we're going to be in the car together for 4 hours tomorrow. Like, what do you got? Mm-hmm. And I was like, okay. So I had this spiral notebook. I wrote skate trivia on the front of it. And it was just like anything I could think of that I thought I could stump Brian on.
Okay.
That's how it started. It started as like us just trying to like really just kill time in the car. Because we've already talked. He knows everything in my life. I know everything in his life. Like, we are bored about talking to each other, and we had to sit in this car for 4 hours. So that is where it started. So then I started to amass questions. Like, by the time I left Maryland, I probably had close to 500 questions. And then I moved to California in 2004. And then randomly, I just started meeting people like. So I was going out shooting photos, and I was like, I really want to shoot photos with Bryce Knights. So I went to Bryce's website and I emailed him. And I was like, hey, Bryce, like, I ride for a Scott Bourne sport company. Like, do you want to go shoot photos? Mm-hmm. And he immediately wrote me back and was like, yeah, like, let's meet up this week. And I've been friends with Bryce ever since. Okay. And when I first met people, I wasn't like, and I'm working on this trivia game. Like, I didn't say anything. I would just be like, hey, like, whatever happened between you and Thrasher? And then just the conversation is just fucking going. Okay. And I'm like in my brain, and I'm like taking notes on the side. And like, even like when I went on a Consolidated tour and I'm sitting next to Karma, or I'm like wedged between like him and Alan Peterson, I'm like, what else are we going to talk about? I'm like, hey, like, what happened with that thing in that one time in that video? So again, I'm just taking notes. And so it really ramped up after I moved to California. So then between 2004 and around 2010, again, like, I'm still skating a ton, I'm bartending. I was like, oh, that's funny. Like I got to know like Toad and Justin Strubing pretty well. Oh yeah. And then we went down to LA and we shot a bunch of like fuel segments with Laban and Ted Newsom. Again, who I've kept in touch with. Yeah. And then I was just like amassing this, like, I was starting to meet people, and I could just ask them like, hey, like, whatever happened with that thing, you know? Mm-hmm. Again, taking notes. So then by the time I pitched the idea to Ginkgo, again, I didn't know what I was making or what I was doing, but I had like somewhere around 1,500 to 2,000 questions. And I was like, I don't know what to do with this shit. So I actually pitched it to them as a book. Okay. I was like, well, you guys are a publisher. Do you want to publish a book of skateboard trivia? That was my original idea. Okay. And then they wrote me back. Again, he called me 4 days later and was like, we want to do this, but what do you think about making it a card game? Because all we publish is books, and we're trying to like broaden that. Right, okay. And I was like, yeah, dude, let's go. So he actually sent me the dimensions. He was like, what do you think about the cards being this big, it being this big? There can be 50 cards. How much trivia do you think you can fit on that? So then I designed a single card. Right. And I figured out the character count, and I was like, I think I could fit 5 questions on a card, so we could do 250 questions. Yeah, okay. And they were like, go, just make it. Mm-hmm. So then I picked 250 questions. And again, some of the trivia is really, really, really old. Like, really old. I'm sure, yeah. But I was like, man, this is such a good question. It's just a good question. It's just interesting. Okay. So I handed off to Ginkgo. And then at the last minute, I was like, I should make like a rules card. Like how to play. Okay. So the how to play card that comes with the deck of cards says... the rules are there are no rules. Like, we're skateboarders. Just play however you want to play. Like, I don't care. Like, give them 3 chances to get... Like, I don't give a shit. Like, make up the rules because you're going to anyways. Mm-hmm. And so that's what I did with the card game. And then it came out, and then I found out that it's really hard. Like, it's really, really hard. Like, skateboarders who have been skating for 10 years are like, I can't answer a single question in that deck. Yeah. Like, it's almost impossible. Okay. And that's when I realized, I was like... oh shit. Some of those questions, when I thought they were hard in like 1998. They're impossible now, right?
Yeah.
So, and then I really, really realized like the gravity of it when I got in touch with this dude. His name's Tim, and he's the editor of the 9 Club. And he was like, dude, send me a game. Okay. So then I sent Tim games, and then I sent 2 games to the actual show. Right. And they ended up playing the game on the show.
Yeah, I saw that on your Instagram. Yeah.
Yeah, that's when I realized really how hard it is, because these dudes, they are like skateboard media, and they're like, they had a really hard time getting a lot of them, right? It was like the best test we could have ever run.
Yeah, for sure.
And surprisingly, Chris knew a lot of them. Kelly Hart knew a lot of them. You know, like, but they kept saying, just because they couldn't get everyone right, they were like, this is way too hard. And I was like, well, you're not supposed to get everyone right. Then it's not fun. Right?
Yeah.
But Roger Bagley got every single one right. Like, Roger Bagley could not be stumped. Like, on the show, it turned into everybody just reading questions to Roger to see which one they could get, and they couldn't get him on a single one. He knew every one. It was like, it was so impressive to watch. So then it was like right at that time. So I connected with my really, really good friend, Jack Spanbauer. He's a skateboarder in Colorado. We've known each other for a really, really long time. And he's just as much of a nerd. And he actually came to California. We had an all-day workshop here at Plaid again. And I was like, what do we do? Like, what's the next thing for skate trivia? Because, like, I love working on this so much, but it's really, really hard. Like, what do we do? So the decisions we made in that meeting were every single question has to be multiple choice, which I fought tooth and nail. Okay. Like, tooth and nail, I was like, no, that makes it too easy. But then he was like, dude, it's too easy for you. Yeah. It's too easy for Roger Bagley. Like, it needs to be fun for everyone. I was like, okay. So every question is multiple choice. Then I was like, I want to be able to provide a hint to every single question. Okay. And then it was pretty much at that point, he was like, we need to go digital. This needs to be a digital experience. And we didn't know, is it a website? Is it an iOS app? Like, we didn't know any of that. So then what we decided, like, after that, in that meeting, we decided, okay, it's going to be a website that can be viewed on anything. So you could view the website on your phone, tablet, computer. It's a web-based app.
Okay.
And then a really big decision we had to make, and this is something, I really struggled with. I was like, how much content is enough? Like, if I put up 1,000 questions, would you come periodically, or would you just do all 1,000? Oh, yeah. And every person, actually, I'll ask you, if there was a skate trivia website and there was like a fixed number of it, let's say 500, there's 500 questions, would you just do all 500?
Not in one shot for sure, but I'd probably do a few, like 10, 20, 50 in one session, and probably come back for more. I guess that's what I would do, yeah, probably. Yeah,
you'd like binge on it. You'd do 10 at a time, 12 at a time, right?
Right, yeah.
And then so we're like, well, basically, and I talked to a lot of skateboarders, and everyone was like, if you give me 200 questions, I'm going to just do 200 questions. Like, I'm going to do all of the ones that you give me, and then I'll just wait to hear when there's more on the site. So basically, It's like, oh, this isn't going to work. So then we decided, okay, we're going to do one a day, 2 games. So there's going to be skate trivia, and there's going to be skate spot trivia. Oh, and a new question goes up every day, and that question is only up for 24 hours. And then those questions disappear and 2 new questions go up. Okay. And we do that every day. And then, so that's the platform we're currently building. We beta test it in a week, and it will be live in January.
On January 1st, or?
No, because of the holidays, it's probably going to be at best mid-January, maybe even a late January launch. It just depends on, like, we need to iron out the kinks. Okay. But that's the platform we're currently building. So we have the printed game, but actually that's not our focus at all. The printed game is rad, and the printed game is fun, but the printed game is for a very specific audience of older, insanely knowledgeable skateboarders. Okay. But however, with that said, it's filled with a ton of like really rad skateboard history. Like, even though you don't know, like, it'd be hard to answer the questions, it's really, like, there's a lot of like really rad history in it, like, where trick names came from, or, whatever.
So I assume it's mostly about American skateboarding, but is it a bit also about maybe trivia from like skate in Europe or elsewhere in the world or in Canada, like, or is it really focused on the States?
No, not at all. It's like we're trying to create a global game, and we're trying to incorporate all facets of skateboarding. That's actually something that from very early on when I was working on, like, even when I was like a teenager, it's like everybody wants to talk about the 90s. Everybody wants to talk about like the Steve Rocco era of skateboarding because it's fun, right? But skateboarding didn't start at Steve Rocco, right? Like there is really, really interesting shit from the 70s.
Sure.
That's really oddball. Like some weird stuff was happening on like the Signal Hill speed trials. Like there's the weird stuff. And honestly, like as long as it's true, it's trivia to me. So like I was like, if it's true, I'm going to use it. So with that said, everything has to be verified by at least one notable source, which we have a pretty rad list of people that we verify questions with.
I saw that on the website, yeah.
Yeah, so we like, I run stuff by people and like, hey, like, could you, like, if somebody can green light it, I'm like, we're a go.
Yeah.
But somebody that like, you know, for instance, like the name Melancholy, and the first time somebody ever saw someone do a Melancholy, that was verified by Dave Swift. And Dave was like, I was at that contest. I saw that happen. Like, you can say that that is to the best of my knowledge, right? Yeah, totally.
Okay.
So then we rewrote the question to be like, according to Dave Swift, ... right? Okay. So then therefore it's like, people could be like, that's not true. It's like, well, according to Dave Swift, you know, like it's worded in a way where you really kind of can't argue, right?
Yeah.
So as I told you, me and my girlfriend May, we were just in France.
Right.
So while we were there, I was like, I hope this is okay, but I need to go photograph skate spots. So we went to, I don't know what skateboarders call it, which is a good question for you, but like the Palais de Tokyo, the famous ledges.
Yeah, Le Dôme.
That's what skateboarders call it, Le Dôme.
Yeah, Le Dôme, yeah.
Okay, so I went there and I photographed all the ledges, all the plaza, like everything.
Stairs, yeah.
Yeah, and then my really good friend, Will Harmon, he lives in London.
Free Skate Mag, yeah.
Yeah, so Will, I know from, we lived in San Francisco together, plus I believe we skated on the East Coast even before that. Okay. So I hit up Will and I was like, hey, Will, what's the chance I can get you to photograph skate spots around London? And I explained to him what it was for, and he was like, oh, I'm so in. So he's photographing spots in London, and then I shot a few in Paris. Because I found a few other spots where I'm like, I think this is notable. But I mean, I was only in Paris for like 7 days.
Yeah.
But absolutely, like after the game comes out, like, and then my content partner, Jack, he's been to Barcelona and he's been to Lyon. And he shot photos of that crazy 25 stair that Jaws ollied.
Yeah. Of course.
And being a traveling skateboarder, he just was like, that's that spot, and took a picture of it, completely unknowing that we were going to need this picture like 5 years later, right?
Okay.
So that's one. So we have some international spots.
Okay.
And then I've been able to connect with a few photographers, Joe Brook being one, who travel a lot. And I'm like, hey, Joe, if you're in China, can you shoot spots? Like, can you just take like somewhere? Yeah, wherever you go, if you can just take some iPhone photos. So Joe's like, absolutely. And basically people are just like, I want this game to be fun.
Yeah.
So of course we're starting with a ton of Bay Area spots because I just went and shot the photos. But we've connected with a lot of people who are in Southern California, East Coast, and then we're starting to go global. So we want spots from everywhere, as long as they are well-known spots to skateboarders. They're
If it's just a parking lot in the middle of nowhere in France, it doesn't make much.
Yeah, but a skateboarder who lives in Sydney, Australia, will recognize Le Dôme.
Yeah,
they've never been to France, right? They've never been there, but they're like, I know that ledge.
I've seen this in that video, and for sure.
Yeah, I mean, it's like they're so iconic.
Yeah.
Then it's like, who did what on what that landed them on the cover of this? You know, like.
So the skate spots game, is it basically going to be like, where is this spot, or is it also going to be questions like who did what on this spot? Is it a bit broader than just where is it basically, or?
So if you have ever been in a car of skateboarders and that car drove up to a spot and everybody got out, and the conversation that takes place immediately following, that's what the game's about. Like, dude, did you know that like so-and-so came here with a Tiba at 6 o'clock in the morning to try and do this and they never got it? That's trivia, dude. Like, that is stuff that skateboarders actually talk about that shit.
Right.
I will eventually shoot a photo of the train tracks that Tyshawn kickflipped over at the 145th station somewhere in New York. Like, I'm going to go there. because 3 years from now, that's good trivia.
Yeah.
Right?
Okay.
Like, so, and they went there at 4 o'clock in the morning, him and Atiba. That's crazy, the shit that skateboarders do to do that stuff. But yeah, so it'll be NBDs, ABDs, where is it? It could even be what do local skateboarders call it. Okay. Like, this is at the Palais de Tokyo, but what do skateboarders call the spot?
Yeah,
right?
Called by the skate. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, like, and again, I truly believe that the questions are gonna be more interesting than that. But that's the shit. Like, you and I, 2 skateboarders, and I'm like, what do you guys call that? Like, oh, it's Le Dome. Like, I didn't know that. So it's all of the above, man. It's the shit we actually talk about when we're looking at skate spots.
Yeah, for sure. I was wondering if you had drawn some influence maybe from other people that have developed somewhat similar initiatives around skate trivia, because I remember years ago there was a Skate Nerd on Transworld that did a somewhat similar thing. You mentioned also Justin Strubing a little bit earlier. I know that with Daniel Shimizu and Clint Peterson, they started Useless Wooden Knowledge, which was also doing skate trivia. So did you draw inspiration from other initiatives like that, or did you try to go in a different direction when you first started thinking about this project?
So again, like when I first started working on content, I had no idea what I was writing for other than me and my friends.
Right.
And then after I amassed, let's say somewhere around 2,000 questions, I actually didn't know about any of those other things that were going on. Okay. Because I was just working at this, like, I was working at a little girl's toy company, and then I was working at, like, in health tech. I was, like, paying attention to skateboarding, but not that close. Okay. So then I was like, what am I going to do with all of this? Like, I have so much of this, and I don't know what to do with it. I was like, I'll just release a book. But then after they were like, no, card game. And I was like, okay, that sounds like fun. So then I made it. So it wasn't until after the card game came out that I started to reconnect with people. And people were like, oh my God, did you know about Useless Wooden Knowledge? And I was like, no, what is that? So then I found out more. And then there is another one by somebody that does trivia in Tampa every time they have like a contest down there. And that one is called Tin Can Skate Lore.
Oh, okay. It's a tribute to the stereo video. Yeah.
Yeah. So like, there's Tin Can Skate Lore. There's Useless Wooden Knowledge. Which again, those are like amazing names. Right. Like I called mine Skate Trivia.
It fits. Makes sense.
Yeah, I was like, well, you look at it, you know what it is. Yeah. So, but I actually didn't start finding out about those until after the printed game was out, and then now that we're working on the website, that is going to be free for everyone to play, 1 question a day. A few people are like, are you affiliated with these dudes or these dudes? So a few people have been asking, and I was like, no, but like, I hope they all own our printed game. Like, fucking have at it, man. Take it to a bar and have fun. Like, we're actually, me and my content partner, Jack, me and Jack are amassing so much content. Like, all he does is write content. And then all I do is I'm designing the platform, and I'm doing business development. Okay. So I write emails, I connect with people. But like, so since we're like, him and I are partnered together, like there's someone working on the content at all times, constantly. Like, he gets every video, he gets every magazine, he reads every website. Like, the dude is like a sponge. He's the best. Jack Spanbauer is the best. And so I just hope that people are hyped on it and people want to play it. Yeah. If people want to play it, I'm stoked. That means we're making it for like a fun audience.
For sure. Yeah. I don't know if you've heard of this website. It's called Skateboardle. Like, Walker just released his new book, Off Clark, and he did like this partnership thing with Skateboardle. So from my understanding, Skateboardle is like a satellite of skate video site, which is a more famous website that has, all the songs to pretty much all the skate videos you can think of. And so Skateboardle is somewhat similar to what you're going to do, in the sense that they have a few excerpts from videos and they try to have you guess which video this is. But yeah, so I was wondering, like, have you talked with the people who are doing Skateboardle, and did you hear about it recently, or like?
Absolutely. And it was actually only a few weeks after we decided to do the one a day, like that big meeting that Jack and I had. Yeah. About 2 weeks after that, he sent me the link and was like, dude, look at this. We play Skateboardle every day because we're nerds and we just love it. We love it. And then just recently, we met the guy who runs it, Sean.
Yeah.
because we're gonna run ads on our site that point to Skateboardle and say, basically, we're only giving you one question a day. If you want more, go play his game. So he also runs skate video site, which because we're writing skate trivia, we go to skate video site every day.
Oh yeah, I go there a lot too. Yeah, sure.
right. It's like the best reference ever.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And so we met with Sean, and I mean, we're not like working together, but we're gonna help each other out. Me and Jack love that dude.
Yeah.
And Walker introduced us. And the one thing we talked about is that, like, it's cool that he's doing the giveaway with the book, but the coolest thing of the whole thing that we saw was that Walker picked all the clips for 7 days.
Right.
And we're like, and then we see an opportunity there. We're like, man, what if we could like work with people where like they pick the trivia for 2 days or 3 days or something like that. Like that level of integration with other skate nerds is like, we love it. So we're kind of keeping on all that. But yeah, we're like, Sean, we got Sean on speed dial. I love the dude.
Yeah. Awesome.
I mean, what he built is epic. So Jack doesn't miss one. Jack gets it every day. I never get it right.
Yeah.
Because these videos, if it was clips from like Shock Me Not, man, I've got you all goddamn day. But like a lot of these now that he's running are videos where I'm like, man, this is some Transworld video, and I definitely I know it's a Transworld video, so I'll just I guess, and very rarely do I get it right.
Yeah. I'm gonna share with you the friends questions, but just before we do that, I have just 2 quick last questions. So just for the people who are listening, so you said the games will be available online sometime in January, and so to kind of sum it up, so it will be Skate Trivia and a Skate Spot, 2 separate websites, or is it going to be one website?
One website with multiple games. We're starting with 2, and then we'll be able to add more.
Okay, cool. Okay.
Yeah, and it's just skatetrivia.com, and on skatetrivia.com, our goal for that website is going to be 1 a day, multiple games, and it'll be free to the public.
Okay.
So just go, you only get 1 question, and we're hoping that there is, every day there's a question, a hint, and a behind-the-scenes story. Even if it's just a little text blurb, it'll be some sort of story about like where we found out about it or who verified it or whatever. But there'll be like a little blurb about like, because anytime you get a really, really good question, the first thing I always think is like, there's no way that's true, you know? So then we decided like, oh, how sick would it be if it's like, yeah, that's true. And this is like, yeah, that actually happened, you know? So we do it for Skate Trivia, Skate Spot Trivia. And the printed game is split up into 5 different categories, but not the website. Yeah. The website's just everything.
Yeah, I have them here. It's the names and nicknames, footy tape, tricks of the trade, teams and companies, and wild card.
Correct, yeah. So on the printed game, there's 5 questions on each card. It's 1 from each category. And those categories came up just because over the years, everything kind of fit into those buckets. And wild card are just like the ones that didn't have a bucket. It's just weird. This, like...
Random.
Yeah, random. But then for the website, we decided we removed the idea. Like as we write content, we're still putting things in categories, but the website is just it's just anything skateboard trivia.
Okay.
And it's 1 a day. And then we eventually will have some paid games that we want to continue to release, but that's right now what we're building is going to be 1 a day and free.
Cool.
Or at least free to play.
Yeah, I look forward to it. Yeah.
Yeah. So so we don't know the exact release date. So you are correct. Our goal is that it comes out mid-January, but I will say the game will be live by February 1st, hell or high water. No matter what. But our goal is like if you checked by January 15th, it may be live.
Okay. Cool. All right, so just one last question before we do the friends questions. So what would you say is the most valuable lesson that you feel you've learned from skating?
Oh my God. Okay, so Peastone taught me a very, very valuable lesson. And that is when you're on the road, if there isn't any toilet paper, you've always got a sock.
Wow.
And I learned that from Preston. Because I drove to San Diego a few times from the Bay Area down to San Diego and back. Because this is around the time Preston moved up here.
Uh-huh.
And he only had 1 sock on. And I was like, and then, so that's how I learned. So I got hundreds of these, but there's one I'll leave you with. Because that's real. That is real.
Pearls of wisdom.
From the Preston, the loaf my getter himself. Yeah, he was a fucking epic human being.
All right, so I have a couple audio questions that I'm going to have you listen to, and then I have a few other that are written, and I'm going to read them out to you.
Okay.
Good day, Gordon. This is your pal Kevin from the Look Back Library. My question is, how would you characterize your relationship with El Vortex? And as a follow-up, have you skateboarded with him lately?
So El Vortex, if you've never heard of him...
No, I haven't, yeah. I was wondering who it was.
Okay, so El Vortex it's a lucha libre mask. And whoever puts on the mask becomes El Vortex. And okay. El Vortex had like a 12-page interview in Slap Magazine at one point. And I first met El Vortex in Baltimore when he was very young and rowdy. But he loves skateboarding through and through. And he loves starting shit. He loves going to places and starting shit. And El Vortex has come with us on road trips. I've seen him around the country. He's a very interesting thing. So if you look up, there's got to be video clips. But El Vortex is a shirtless lucha libre skateboarder who has landed really, really impressive tricks.
Okay.
So, yeah, a lot of one-footed frontside rocks. It's interesting. Yeah, look him up. So my relationship with El Vortex is, we haven't seen each other lately, but I cherish the dude. And actually I say dude loosely because maybe El Vortex isn't always a dude. So, I don't know. Okay. But he's interesting. Yeah. I have not seen El Vortex lately. El Vortex has been chilling for like...
a minute?
We'll say maybe even 10 years. Maybe.
Okay.
Interesting. Thanks, Kevin Marks.
Okay, this one is from Walker Ryan. He said to ask you if you have any good stories from skating Oakland with Jim Lalonde back in the day.
Okay, so that's how I met Walker. So Jim was a filmmaker. He made a bunch of videos for Consolidated, and that's how I met him. Okay. And so then randomly I ran into Jim, and Jim was making a video for 510 Skate Shop. So I was like, oh, here's a video part that I don't know what to do with, so here, just take it. And then that's how I met all of them. So I started going out with them, like just hitting Oakland spots and whatever. And Oakland is a very rough area. Like it gets cutty quick. But I'm going to tell the Walker story, which is the very first day I ever met Walker. Walker was like maybe 17. He was definitely still in high school. Okay. And I'm like 26. So I go and meet up with them, and we're somewhere in Oakland, and Jim is filming. He's trying to get a couple of last-minute clips for the video. And Walker, the very first thing he ever said to me was, do you want to play skate? And I said, yeah, sure. And he does a backside 360 ollie, and I was like, ooh. I was like, I'll give it a shot. I suck at back threes. And Walker was like, that was switch. And he laughed.
No way.
He laughed, and he was like, no, for real. Like, let's start now. But, like, he did it just to fuck with me, and I was wow. Damn, dude. I was like, this kid is amazing. Yeah. And he like rifled me. As guy 18 did nothing. Like I didn't even give him a letter for sure. But that's how I met Walker. And and I've been able to keep in touch with him like all through the days. And, he was just a flow kid who was still in high school at the time. Okay. But he was like a wizard then. I was like, oh my God, this kid is amazing. He's so good at skateboarding. Did you see that clip of him reading the book?
Nose Willie Nolly Trey out, right?
Yeah. Book in his face, like what an ass, what an. And
asshole. he did on that spot in New York, like a back nose grind to nollie frontside flip out, and like he did it really sick. Like he's still incredible. Dude. Yeah, I mean he's not that old, but he's I don't know how he keeps at that level. I'm sure he must like stretch, eat well, whatever he's doing, it's working. So
dude, a lot of calf raises. Yeah, just keeping his like ankles and knees. It's I don't know. The dude amazes me, but that's actually a story that like so the very first day, or it was like day 2 or day 3 of like that Walker thing on Skateboardle. Okay. The very first clip was a clip of him. It's a line that he ends with a switch backside 3 off a bump. Okay. I wrote Walker an email that was like, I got to tell you the story of the day we met because you're not going to remember. I was like, you're not going to remember, but I remember that shit, and you totally did that to me in a game of skate.
So this next question is, so I'm not sure who it is, but it's whoever is handling the Useless Wooden Knowledge Instagram account.
Oh, okay.
So I reached out to them, and so I'm not sure who it is, but someone from there asked, since Gordon has the best ever front blunts on transition, I'd like to know what the damn secret is.
It could be Andreas Trolf, maybe. And Trolf was like somebody that he's somebody that we skated with a lot when we lived in San Francisco. And front blunts was a trick I learned when I was very young. Mm-hmm. And honestly, like, so I skated transition a lot growing up because there wasn't a lot of street spots and I had a mini ramp in my backyard. So like, and I learned how to blunt fakie very easy. And then I knew how to do a frontside 180 ollie on street. So I was like, I just put the two together and I just did a frontside 180 ollie out of a blunt.
Okay.
And for me, it made sense. And then as I got older, but I was very young. Like I could do like front blunts on training when I was like, I don't know, 14 maybe, which was young for skateboarding at the time, I guess. Yeah. And then as I got older, I just started doing them on higher and higher things, bigger and bigger things, and it just became one of those like staple tricks.
Right.
So I think the trick is that I learned it when I was young. So as I got older,
natural.
like it was just like it was just like lining up a curve.
Okay.
But it did become one of those tricks where like people would like yell out, like do a kickflip. Like I would just be skating and someone's like front blunt, like they would just yell it.
It was your signature trick. Okay.
Yeah, and I've definitely been like mid-contest run where somebody yelled front blunt, and I would like turn around and go right to that person and do it right in front of them just to be an asshole. And so I'm guilty of that one too.
Okay, let's do the last ones. So I have one from Andrew, who's he runs an account. I don't know if you know this account on Instagram. It's called Overthinking Skate Videos.
Yeah, I follow this guy.
Okay.
Yeah, I love it.
So he said, what kind of things are you surprised people know, and what are you surprised people don't know in regards to the game, of course?
Okay, and again, I don't like host trivia. I just make the content, put it out, and people play it, right?
Right, yeah.
So there is a bit of a disconnect, but let me try and think of one question that I'm like always surprised that nobody knows, or that it's hard for people. Nowadays nothing shocks me, but it surprises me when I list someone who, like, I'll name a name and they'll be like, I don't know who that is, Like, there's some people who really had a resurgence, like Jeff Grosso. Like, Grosso was huge, and then no one knew who Jeff Grosso was. And then all of a sudden, everyone knew who Jeff Grosso was, right? Like he kind of had, like, this dip.
Yeah.
And I'll say same with, like, Hosoi. There was a moment where, like, he was, like, top of the world. No one knew who Hosoi was. And then now he's just, like, this name. Mm-hmm. But something that I'm surprised that people don't know. So I'll say trick names. Names. Where, like, there will be professional skateboarders who are well into their career. And they have no idea what tricks are actually, like, certain tricks are called because they grew up in an era where it's like the SSBSTS of the 2000s, where it's like, where people started using acronyms because the name of the trick was so long, right? But then if you're like a dump truck and they're like, what the hell is a dump truck? Like, it's just like, oh, well, they just started skateboarding post an era where skateboarders would give tricks names. Uh-huh. And all of those names, more or less, have stuck. At least the ones that are, like, widely accepted. Like, why is it called a method air? And the history and the story behind it is, like, so rad. It's one of my favorites.
Okay.
But, like, people don't know. A lot of people don't know. Like, do you have any idea why it's called the method air?
No, I don't.
Okay, it was Neil Blender's method of doing airs higher. So, like, Neil could only do backside airs so high. So he would do a backside air, and then he would pull and try and go higher. So he was like, that's my method.
Okay.
And then everybody so everyone just started calling them method airs. And, like, it stuck. And then now, like I said, like, snowboarders call them method airs. But they probably have no idea why it's called a method air, right? Yeah. And again, that's just something I've noticed. I say it surprised me. It really doesn't surprise me because these are, like, things from, like, the late 80s, early 90s. But it always amazes me, I guess. It always amazes me where I'm like, holy shit, you're a professional skateboarder. You have no idea what tricks are even called.
Yeah.
So I'll say that. And then for something that, like, never ceases to amaze me, I wrote a question in the printed game about who was on the cover of Thrasher magazine, I want to say 1981
Oh, wow.
Within the year 1981,
Okay.
doing a stationary flat ground ollie. He's just doing an ollie standing still. And
Okay.
it was cover of Thrasher. And the vast majority of people that ask that question, they know it. They get that right. Do you know who that was?
I don't know.
Take a guess.
Rodney Mullen or?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah,
Because I was
most
thinking
people
like
get that right.
Alan Gelfand like invented the ollie basically, but on transition, and I remembered kind of that Rodney Mullen developed it on street, but
Correct. And when I say developed it, so again, at the time, boards were really big and heavy and clunky with like rails and tail guards and all this extra shit on them, right? But he had a freestyle board. It was much, much lighter.
okay.
Plus, he was just we'll say in his like physical prime. So he could ollie like insanely high just on flat ground without using his hands. And it was like it was the cover of Thrasher, him doing an ollie. And it's like insanely high ollie, even for now.
Yeah.
But that's one thing where it's like most skateboarders know Alan Gelfand ollied on transition, which he did like a no hands aerial.
Right.
And they called it ollie because that was his nickname.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
And then Mullen basically, one at a time, single-handedly took everything and applied it to flat ground or street. And his list, I have 2 pages that I tore out of magazines that are like, it's an infographic of all the tricks invented by Rodney Mullen. One was just a list, and it was a Plan B ad from like 1990. And then the other one was some infographic that was made by Transworld. I have both of them actually like set aside. I'll send you a picture of them.
Oh, yeah, please.
And those are things where it's like, I'm still surprised to this day that like young, though like Rodney Mullen, they know that Mullen
It's like the father of street skating, yeah.
Yeah. He doesn't like that title, nor does he like, he doesn't even want anybody to call him that. But sorry, Rodney, you are.
He did create a lot of shit, so yeah, might as well acknowledge it.
Yeah.
I have a few last ones. Let's see.
Let's do it.
Dude, I got a random one. What is the most unpleasant or like irksome trick or skateboarding moment you've ever seen in person? And on a lighter note, can we get a quick Lee Bender story? All right, peace.
That was Jack Spanbauer.
Yes, we talked about him earlier.
Nice. Okay, so Spanbauer is my content partner. Dude, Jack Spanbauer is a fucking lovely human. I fucking love. Okay. So irksome is okay. So I've been to the Tampa contest a few times.
Mm-hmm.
I've entered twice the Tampa Am.
Okay.
And the years I went, it was hosted by, I'm spacing on the guy that owns the park. But like, I can't think of his name, but it's him and Clyde Singleton. And Clyde Singleton is like just the personality on the mic. And while people are like taking their run, Singleton needs to be like, and then he did a frontside rock, whatever. Like he's like announcing, right?
Right.
Well, at that time when I went, it was like 97 and 98. And skateboarders were just coming out of the, like, people were entering this contest with like, who is this dude and where the hell are you from? They'd be from like the backwoods of some crazy place, like nobody has ever seen this person, right? And they enter this contest and you can tell that they're like, this is my big shot, like I'm gonna make it in skateboarding, right? And Clyde is on the mic and Clyde is trying to be like, okay dude, like next try, you got this. And they are just blowing it. Like they're just like, and they'll start like breaking their board or like tearing up. And like Clyde's on the mic and Clyde's like, come on, you got this, one more try. And it's just like, it just made, and it would go on. And the Tampa contest was like, there's so many people entered. It's like for 3 days.
Oh, yeah.
But you either are waiting 3 days to take your 30-second run, or you took your run and you wait 3 days to see if you go to the next heat. So it's just days and days of Clyde being like, okay, dude.
Come on, next try.
There's another frontside rock. So I'll say it's definitely something I've thought about many times where, like, after those contests, I never wanted to enter another contest. They were just miserable.
Yeah.
So I'll say that's something that's, like, I felt that was, like, skin crawly. Like, oh, man, I can't believe I have to do this. And then Jack's follow-up question was a Lee Bender story. So
yes.
If you don't know who Lee Bender is, So Lee Bender is just this dude. He's been around forever. He's such an amazing person. When I first met him, he worked at Consolidate. That's how I met him.
Okay.
And then he's just been around. He skated for Indy, and he went on like Indy trips with like Lance Dawes, and he lived in Portland and Phoenix, and we went back and forth between the two. And he's just such an amazing person.
Mm-hmm.
And I have a number of really, really awesome Lee Bender stories. But one that always stands out to me, we went to Phoenix, and we were in Phoenix for a week. And this was like around 2008, and we were staying on Lee's floor, and he was showing us all around Phoenix. Like, we were taking us to backyard pools, and he was taking us to parks and stuff, where there were these chickens that lived across the street. And the chickens would like waddle over to his yard, and they would just hang out. So Lee was like, he named them. And I want to say like one was Boomer, and the other one was, I can't remember the other one's name. But like, we would wake up in the morning and make coffee, and he was like, let's go hang out with Boomer. And the first day we did it, we were like, I don't know what. And then we went into the front yard, and we're sitting on these chairs in his front yard, just hanging out with these chickens. And the chicken would like see Lee and come running over.
Oh, yeah.
And you could like tell they were like homies.
Yeah.
And I was like, this chicken loves you, dude. And he was like, yeah, these chickens are so tight, I love them. And I have a photo of him like holding this chicken. He's just like in his front yard. Lee is just I have 100 Lee Bender stories. He's an awesome dude, 100% skateboarder. He's been around forever, and like just doesn't have a mean bone in his body. He's awesome. But I have this photo of him and Boomer, and I think about it often. About us just like, skateboarding takes you to weird places, you know,
Yeah.
It really, really does. Where you're like, I'm like skating some ditch in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah.
Like one of us could die and no one would ever know, kind of stuff. And like, or I'm like sitting in Phoenix having coffee with chickens.
Chickens,
you know,
yeah.
like, yeah. Like I've been to some weird places, man.
Okay, I still have just two last questions. I'll go through them quickly. So this one is from Brian Ball. You talked about him earlier. So he said, nothing incriminating, but you can ask him about his skate video collection. How many descriptors was the catalog divided into? It's incredible how organized he was.
Okay, so, I mean, I had hundreds, like, way over 1,000 videos, like a lot.
Wow.
And the reason for it was, again, we had our backyard growing up was like a skate park.
Mm-hmm.
And so people would come over and be like, I got the new video. And they're like, I'll just leave it. And people would just leave stuff, we amassed every VHS tape, whether it was like a copy of the video or the actual video itself. Mm. Plus, I would buy them, I'd get them as gifts, whatever. And so, starting very young, we had a lot of skateboard videos. Again, this is all pre-internet. So then, as I got older, I started putting them in cardboard boxes because I moved from house to house. So then I numbered all the boxes, mm-hmm. and I had a binder where like every page was a number and it said what video was in that box. So if somebody's like, oh man, like, do you remember like the second Plan B video? We'd like pull this binder out, we'd like flip through it and be like box 27. And we'd go and find box 27 and then boom, there would be like, so a few people would start to fuck with me and be like, what about this video? And be like, yeah, we have it. What box is it in? And I was like, I don't even need to look. That's in box 18. And they just, so then, like, just really close friends of mine, Brian Ball being very high on that list. Him and I lived together. We drove cross country together. We've known each other since when we met. I was only 12 years old, mm-hmm. and like I talk to the dude still all the time. So him for sure, he's high on the list of like making fun of me about like my box numbering system and like. And just like how many videos I have. But now, funny, so he owns a skateboard camp in Colorado called Square State Skate.
Oh, nice.
And he now owns more magazines and more videos than I ever did. He's got 2 warehouses and a fleet of buses and vans that just drive kids to skate parks.
Wow.
I mean, what he does is magical. And these school buses, he installed a video and a DVD player in the school bus. So while you're driving from park to park, he's just playing skate videos. I mean, it's just like, it's amazing. So like, it's funny, like, I'm not going to say full circle, but like, he used to make fun.
Kind of.
Yeah, he used to make fun of me for like now, he's not making fun of me for owning a lot of skate videos. He would make fun of me about like the organization.
Yeah, and like being super knowledgeable about it and like which box is which video, yeah.
Yeah, and there were these like small boxes because I had to move all the time. Like, I moved 9 times the first 6 years I lived in San Francisco. Like, you're just like, oh, this house is done. We got to go to this other, whatever. So, like, everything was in pretty small boxes. So, like, each box fit, like, I'd say probably, like, 15 videos.
Okay.
And then I donated...
Oh, yeah, to Look Back Library?
Yeah, they almost all of them went to Look Back Library. I kept the ones that were important to me. And then same thing with magazines. Like, people would move, and some of them being, like, famous skateboarders. Like, Gabe Morford, he's the photographer who shot for Deluxe for a long time.
Right,
like,
yeah.
Gabe was moving, and he called me and was like, hey, like, I got a couple of things that I heard that you would want. Mm-hmm. And I was like, sure. And he was like, I'm moving, I just need this stuff to go. And he gave me 2 of these really, really big boxes. They were like the plastic, like, flip-top bins.
Yeah.
Filled with, like, the first 3 years of Slap. I was like, holy shit, I'll take all of this. And so I just continued to acquire stuff where it's like, I don't know, like, word would just get around and be like, yeah, call Eckler, he'll take all that crap. And nowadays it's all worth stuff on eBay. But at the time they were like, yeah, just come and get it.
Okay, I have a last question, which is actually kind of a 3-part question. We don't have to do all 3 of them, but it's from Sean Villers. Is that how you say his name? Sean from Skateboardle.
Oh, you know what's funny is I just know him as Sean. I didn't know his last name.
So the questions he had, so he has like 1 goofy question, 1 skate trivia question, and 1 serious question. So the goofy question is, would you have a better chance at winning a game of skate trivia against Nate Sherwood or a game of skate against Todd Falcon?
Oh my God.
So I was trying to think earlier, like, who's Todd Falcon, but then I remembered he's like this kind of nerdy guy who does like these obscure videos with like super tech tricks with like some weird music and shit. Like, yeah. He was an early YouTube sensation. He was like an early YouTuber. Where like when skateboarding wasn't really using YouTube, there was this dude filming tricks in his garage. Yeah. And he filmed so many tricks that Big Brother gave him an interview. Yeah. That he was interviewed in Big Brother. So honestly, I'm gonna say I got a better chance at a game of skate against Todd Falcon than I do a skate trivia against Nate Sherwood. And I own a skate trivia company. Yes. Yeah. Because I talked to Nate, and Nate helps me with the questions, and that dude is an encyclopedia. A Jedi master of skate trivia.
I just think he's got like a photographic memory. Like it's crazy how much stuff he remembers, and he has his own skate shop in Iowa, and he's just absorbing it, dude. Okay. And he's in it. That guy is 1,000% skateboarder. It's really, really impressive. I highly suggest anyone to talk to him about skateboarding because it is impressive.
Cool.
Yeah. So I'll take Todd Falcon.
Okay, so the skate trivia question is, who won Slap's first 1 in a million contest? Hint, he's from Alvin, Texas, and a friend of mine.
God.
So I don't know the answer. He didn't send me the answer, so
I don't know. Okay. But to take it back to that El Vortex question, El Vortex was in the 1 in a million contest. Okay. So he was up against, and I want to say El Vortex placed pretty high, like 4th or 5th or something. And he's this like barefoot lucha libre skating monster. But if I had to guess who won, I'm going to go with like Lee Berman. Okay. I'm going to say Lee Berman, and that is a wild guess. Okay. Is he from Texas? I have no idea. I don't know.
Okay, very last one. So he said, what has been the most challenging aspect of creating your project?
Okay, I'll say not the printed game and not writing the content. The most difficult part about the current game we're building now,
the online game,
the online game is the financing it. Because we want to build a game that's free to play. So I'm just using my savings to build it, hoping people will play it. Yeah. And Sean totally understands. Like, that's a huge thing that Sean and I talked about, because he's like, I love doing Skateboardle, but it's a ton of work that because he has a 10-month-old child. Oh yeah. Like skateboarding, you do it when you're young, until you hit this point where you're like, oh my God, like how do I live? How do I get by, right? And so Sean's in it, I'm in it, and I took the path of a full-time, cushy job with stock options and healthcare. And I decided this isn't why I went into graphic design. This isn't why I went to art school. This isn't why I want to be a creative. Like I want to be able to I want to be creating the things that I'm truly excited about. So how the hell do I finance it? That's the hardest part. The hardest part is like, and I that's such a lame answer because it's just like, it's still a business, you know? It's a business, and like, you got to find a way how to stay in business.
For sure.
And there's a lot of really rad skateboard things that have come out where everyone's like, fuck, this is sick. This is so sick. But then they go out of business because
you have to make it work. Yeah.
You have to find a way that not only you can stay in business, but you can grow the business.
Yeah.
I understand all of that, and 100%. Like, I just want to write content. I just want to play the game. I just want to be a skateboarder every day. Like, that's what I want to do. But the hardest part is like, okay, how can I do this and be able to sustain it where I could actually hire help? Because Jack is writing content, I am designing like, we're a 2-person team right now, and we can't, like, we'll burn ourselves out. So we're trying to build a business that we can grow. So like, the more people, the more eyeballs that come, the more chance we have of staying alive.
Sure.
So that's really it. Is just tell a friend, go play, and of course, like, and early on, because we're like beta testing the game now. By the time this show comes out, we'll be through all that. But feedback is also very important. If people think the game would be better if ... just email me.
Email
just
you
tell me,
suggestions,
like,
for sure.
There's a contact us on the site in which comes straight to me. I read that.
So people can shoot you a question or a suggestion of some sort.
They can say this sucks and this is why, and I'll read it. They can say this rules but could be better and this is why. Like, that comes straight to me, and I read every one.
Cool.
Every single one. So like, and ever since the printed game came out, like, I've been getting feedback from people, and I read every single one. So like, feedback, watch it, view it, and if you really want to challenge yourself, buy the printed game.
All right, well, let's wrap it up here. Thank you so much, Gordon. Really appreciate you taking the time.
No, I appreciate it. Thanks, Quentin. This is super fun.
That's it for my conversation with Gordon. Follow him on Instagram at Plaidagain, PLAIDAGAIN, and at Skate Trivia Game. Go visit the new website skatetrivia.com to try out the 2 browser-based games, which should be online by the time this interview comes out. You can also order the card game on the dedicated website skatetriviagame.com. Thank you for tuning in. See you soon for a new episode of Beyond Boards.